Hello, my name is Joshua Keith, and this is theburningcoal.com, a website dedicated to God's glory, His grace, and our response to it. Today, I want to talk about being thankful for something that oftentimes we are not thankful for. A lot of times we may be in a situation that is difficult, that is a trial for us, and because it's hard, we're just waiting for it to be over. We're just waiting for something to come along to remove that trial. And so we're not necessarily thankful for it, but James has a very different perspectives on the trials that we go through. In James chapter 1, verses 2 through 3, it says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness." So we see here that James is telling us that it is something that is okay when we run into trials. And in fact, it's more than okay. It's something that we should count as joy, something we should be thankful for. And so what I'd like us to do is talk about why we can be thankful in these times. And one of the things that we need to understand is that he's talking about various kinds of trials, that there's multiple things that we may face that are difficult. So for example, sometimes our bodies don't work like they're supposed to. We may be sick. It may even be something that's not just temporary, but a long-term difficulty where our body doesn't work like it's supposed to. We may also, like we talked about last week, look at social kinds of trials. So for example, the world may persecute us. We might have it to where there's even problems with people in the church, struggles there that cause us to be going through a trial. And then you have the trials that are temptations, where Satan is trying to allure us into a life of sin. And he makes it very difficult for us. And we've got to figure out a way to overcome, to be stronger than that trial. And it's hard during those times. And so there's all sorts of ways that we can encounter trials. And I think what James wants us to understand is that there's value in all of them. That even though it seems hard for the moment, we can find something to be thankful for. One of the things that trials allow us to do is learn. I think about this from my work perspective. Sometimes what I learn the most is when things are going terribly, terribly wrong. Whenever something's broken, it needs to be fixed. It needs to be fixed yesterday. And now I've got to figure it out. So that causes me to learn things. One, because I have to learn something to get through the trial. I have to figure out something new, something that I didn't know. Otherwise, it would already be fixed. But also, the difficulty involved, the adrenaline that goes through as you're dealing with an emergency and difficult situation, causes that lesson to stay in our brains longer. And so we're able to learn things that we might not be able to learn without these trials. For example, we may look at a passage of Scripture, one that we've read our entire lives. But as we're going through the trial, it speaks to us differently. We learn something more about God's character. We learn something more about ourselves. We learn something more about how to overcome. And so as we're going through these trials, it allows us opportunities that we would not otherwise have to be able to learn. But more than that, it also gives us an opportunity to grow. One of the things about skills is that the only way you get better at something is by practicing it. Unfortunately, that's true for patience. That's true for steadfastness. And so if we're trying to become a more patient person, if we're trying to become a more disciplined person, if we're trying to become someone that is more faithful to the Lord, well, the way we grow in those areas is by going through trials that push us past our normal points of endurance for patience and steadfastness. And so when we go through the trial, we get an opportunity to grow in a way that we wouldn't have if we weren't going through that trial. And I think this is what it is that James is talking about. He's wanting us to understand that when trials come upon us, sometimes it's the darkest moments of our life. But even in those darkest moments, God is still there. And God still provides things for us. He still provides us opportunities to grow, opportunities to learn. He provides us blessings even in the most difficult of circumstances. And so we can always be thankful no matter what else is happening in our lives. I hope this lesson blesses you and your walk in His kingdom.